Okay, so to begin, I have made a white paper pattern, and I have my two fabrics here. The first one is for the outside, and that is the Shining Chibi Twins. And then for the lining, I have a Willie Wonka liner in brown candy print. Okay, so here I show you the pattern. It says cut 2 fabric, cut 2 foam, and cut 2 lining. So remember, the lining is the Willie Wonka fabric. And then the black, I color coded them because in the industry they'll color code whatever fabrics you're using. So the black is always the main fabric, the green is the lining, the red is the lining, and then the green can be whatever color. You can choose whatever color you want to color code it, but that's how I went ahead and did it. So now I pressed my fabrics and I've laid them out, and I've got my pattern here. And then you can cut all layers at one time. You can cut them individually, but I like to cut the lining with the fabric together and cut them as one piece. Typically the lining is slightly smaller on a garment or a coat, but in this case it doesn't really matter. You should make the lining slightly smaller, but the way I do that is by sewing just a little bit more seam allowance than I would on a regular piece. So for example, on the lining, I'll cut it the same size for a bag, but what I'll do is when I go to sew the lining into the main body of the bag, in this case, I'll make it slightly more of a seam allowance. So instead of using, let's say, a 1/2 inch, I'll use 5/8, and that should help reduce the bulk on the inside. Okay, so I'm cutting all 4 at one time, all 4 pieces, and I'm using the pins as a weight. You can pin the whole piece around, but I'm already used to cutting out this way, so I just put you can use pattern weights. I just use my pin magnet. And then don't forget the sit flat portion right there. I'm cutting the corners out so that this is the part that creates the sit flat on the bag. So I believe that's 2.5 inches, 1.5, 2.5, depending on the size of your bag. If you're making a smaller bag, you'll want less of a square, because basically you're just cutting out a square in the corner. And if you're making a bigger bag, you'll of course use a larger square. Okay, and this is the foam. I've gone ahead and traced it out in pencil, and because it's a bulkier fabric and it's going to slip, I just cut out one at a time. So here I have my corners cut out, my sit flat corners, and or not cut out, I should say, traced out. And now I'm cutting them out, and then yeah, you want to do this one piece at a time rather than doubling it up. You don't want to put the top, or rather the front and the back together. You just want to cut them out individually, because you don't want to get wonky. You're going to wind up with 2 wonky sides if you cut them out so that there's one on top of the other. So here's my corners. And again, on the corners you could also cut them slightly larger. I would say in this case I would cut them out about 1/8 larger on both sides of that corner, just to create less bulk. Okay, so now I'm placing the main fabric on top of the foam and the lining. Give you an idea of the assembly there. Okay, that's how that's gonna go. Now you can actually stitch it this way, but that's not what I do. I'm just showing you the assembly and how it goes. So you're going to have one side fabric, one side lining, and the foam sandwiched in between. Okay, and that's the top portion. Now when you're working with fabrics like this that have a print that's like a line or a stripe or something, I usually align it, because sometimes your fabric is not printed straight. So I usually just go with the lines. In this case, it's the printing, the lettering. So I just go along those lines and I cut it out rather than the grain. Okay, I'm using a zipper that's slightly larger than the bag that I'm using. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the zipper and then stitch across the teeth using a sewing machine or by hand. You can do it either way. And here I am manually. You want to manually do this because you don't want to break a nail. So you're going to do it slowly. You're going to take your time. You're going to adjust the zipper when necessary. This is a wide tooth zipper, so if you're using a narrower zipper, you can actually just go ahead and sew it, but you want to either drop your feed dogs or you want to sew it by hand. So here I've gone ahead and I've gone back and forth, as you can see, across the teeth, and now I am pinning it, and I've pinned it to my bag because you want to make sure that it's aligned. Now for the seam allowance, I don't worry too much about that. What I do is I use the sewing machine and I stitch along the teeth, so that ridge right there where the teeth are at, that's where you want to butt up the presser foot of your sewing machine. And now I'm going to install the zipper. I sandwich the zipper between the lining and the main fabric by pinning it. And that's to keep it in place and make sure that it doesn't shift while I am sewing. And I already know that I have to feel for the teeth of the zipper as I'm sewing it. So as you're installing the pins, then don't forget, as you're sewing it, you need to remove them before you get to them. So as you're sewing, remove the pin right before you get to it. You don't want your machine needle to hit the pins that you put in place to secure the zipper, because you will break a needle. You'll probably have, a piece of that, the tip of the needle flying, and you don't want that. Okay, so here I'm feeling for it, and I feel the teeth and make sure that my zipper foot, or rather my foot, is aligned with the edge of the zipper. And again, removing the pins before you get to them so that you don't break a needle and you don't snap that pin either. And worse than that, you don't get a piece of the needle in your eye, your skin, or anything. Or if there's somebody sewing near you or standing near you. Okay, now when I get to the zipper pull, I have to lift the arm of the machine and I have to pull the zipper, pull through, and then that will give me the space to go ahead and continue sewing. And don't forget to put your presser foot down. And you want to just back stitch once. You don't have to go back and forth a million times. I always tell people, when you're back stitching, all you need to do is all you want to do is secure your thread. That's it. And by back stitching once, that's good enough. Okay, so here I have one side of the zipper done. And you want to make sure it flows freely. So yeah. Okay, I'm just pushing the fabric down on the lining and the front of the bag, making sure that I'm not going to get any wrinkles in it, because now what I want to do is I want to top stitch this into place so that when I close and open my bag, the fabric doesn't get caught in the teeth of the zipper, and you get a nice smooth glide over the zipper when you're opening or closing your bag. So you want to make sure that the top and the bottom fabrics are smooth and out of the way. And again, use the edge of the zipper foot or the foot that you're using to guide you as far as like how straight to sew the zipper in place here, because that's all you need. You don't need any markings or anything. I'm just making sure that the wrinkles are out of the way and I don't have to re-sew this, rip it out and re-sew it. So that's one side. Okay, now that we've finished the zipper, I want to show you what it looks like on one side. And then we can start working on the other side. We're going to do the exact same thing to the other side that we did to this side. And then once we do that, so it's going to look like this. You can press it down, you can stitch it down. I always prefer to stitch it down so that my zipper doesn't get caught up. Okay, and that's how you install the zipper. It looks nice and tidy. Now we're going to, I've stitched on the foam. I've stitched on both sides first, and I did the bottom, and I did the exact same thing on the other side. Now you have to leave an opening at the bottom of the bag. You can leave it on the side. I leave mine at the bottom in the lining part of the fabric. Okay, and then I go ahead and I do the corners. I'm sewing the corners right now. So when you leave, I think this one was 1.5 inches on either side. So when you do that, you're going to wind up having so it's going to be 1/2 inch probably sewn in. So you have a total of 2 inches sit flat bottom. And then, so each corner will measure 2 inches approximately. And then you have to flip the bag inside out. Now this is the part that gets tricky. I've left the opening on the bottom so that I can flip it out. And it's going to be a struggle. So I'll be back after I go ahead and undo the bag. Okay, and here is the final bag. Sits nice and flat. There's nothing in it. Open up the zipper nice and smoothly. There's a thread there, so I've got to cut that thread. I went ahead and stitched the bottom that allowed me to turn it inside out. So just make sure that the zipper glides smoothly. And you're done. There's your bag. Use it for makeup, for travel, whatever you like. And there it is. Alright, if you have any questions, leave them below. This took me a total of maybe 20 minutes to do, once everything was already cut. So just the sewing portion of it took me about 20 minutes. Alright, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.